In this video, I'm going to talk about how to write the equation of a line using basic examples where you're given the slope and a y-intercept, or you're given a graph. So this won't be a complete video on how to do this. There will be later problems that will require a little bit more math, but for today, this should get across the basic concept of how to write the equation of a line when you're looking at the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so to start these off, just a reminder here that the first thing we always need to remember is that m represents our slope. That's the variable for slope, and that's like our rise over run when we're looking at a graph. And b represents the y-intercept. Again, the y-intercept is where the graph or the line will cross the y-axis. So what I want to do here is look at, let's go with the red line here first. So do this kind of in this order here. We'll go red, blue, and then green. And with this red graph, we're going to go ahead and write the equation of a line. Now, normally we have the equation and we have to graph it. But here I have the line. I'm going to go backwards now and say, well, what was the problem or what was the equation that I must have had to be able to write or to be able to graph that line? Okay? And a good place to start here is by looking at the y-intercept on our red line. So if we go here to the red line and we look at where this red line is going to cross the y-axis, so this axis right here, you can see that the red line crosses right here at -2. So what we can do here is on this line we can fill in a -2 for the b because that's the y-intercept. Okay? Once we filled in that it crosses the y-axis at -2, now we can go over to our rise over run. So remember that slope is just a ratio that gives us the steepness of the line. So how much it's going up and how much it's going over. And if we look at kind of 2 points on the red line, you may not always have nice even dots like this. But if you're looking at a graph, make your own dots if it doesn't have dots that cross at nice even spots where the lines connect. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to go ahead. To get from one point to the other, we have to go up 2, we have to rise 2, and run 1. Okay? It tells me that my slope in this case would be 2 over 1, which is 2. So that would be the line that we would have to be able to create that graph. And you can always check your answer by graphing the line, covering up the graph, and graphing it again on your own and see if it matches the graph that you have in front of you. Again, this isn't really the best way to write this, especially if you're looking at a multiple choice test. The best way to write this would be y equals 2x. Instead of writing plus negative, I'm going to write -2, and that would be our answer here for the first one. So the key is we need to fill in. I always start by writing y equals blank x plus blank and filling in the slope and the y-intercept. Okay? Let's go ahead and continue with that. So I'm going to start with number 2 here. Next, we'll look at the blue line. Okay. Again, if you want to pause the video here, you can try this one on your own. If not, we'll keep going and try this one out. So again, good place to start is by looking at the y-intercept first. Okay. If we look at the blue line crosses the y-axis at, looks like +4. So I'm going to fill in a 4 here. Now we've got to look at the rise over run to get the slope. So if we look at, just 2 random points here, we may not always pick the best 2, but I'll show you an example of that here. Get from one point to the next here, I'm rising 2 and running 2. So that's going to be a ratio of 2 over 2. Now that's not really reduced, so we can reduce that fraction 2 over 2 to 1. So I'm going to sneak that 1 in front of the x. And now we have the equation of the line. Once again, if this is a multiple choice test, on this example, you really could write this a little bit better. We usually don't write 1x when we're writing this as simplified as we can. We usually just write it x. So the best answer here would probably be y equals x plus 4. Okay? And again, if you were to check your answer, that means you're starting up at 4, and you're rising 1 and running 1. Rising 1 and running 1. Okay? Next one. If we go to green line, okay, now you notice that this one here starts at the origin, which gives us a y-intercept at 0. So we'll fill that in first. And then to do our rise over run, you can see that the line is going, if we start at this point, it's going down 1. And we said that going down is like being negative, and over 3, which is like positive. Okay, I'll fill these in to help you guys out here to remind you which directions are positive and negative. So we're going down 1 and over 3. So that would be a rise over run of negative 1/3. So fill that in here, negative 1 over 3. Again, there is a nicer way to write this one. So the plus 0, you're probably not going to see on a multiple choice test, so I'm just going to rewrite that to y equals negative 1/3 x. The plus 0 isn't really that important there. And that will give me the equation of that line. Things to note, always check your answer to make sure that your slope works. So I'm going to go back to all of these and just make sure that I have the correct slope here. Looking at 2, okay, this is going uphill from left to right, so we know that our slope should be positive, and it is. So I have a positive 2 here. Looking at the blue line, this is going uphill, so we know our slope should be positive. It is, it's positive 1. And then one more time here, looking at this one, our slope is negative, meaning it should be going downhill from left to right, and the green line is. So we know that we have all those slopes correct. Make sure you go back and check to make sure that your slopes are positive and negative, and that matches the slope in your answer. All right. We may not always be given a graph. We might be given different pieces of information. And the first one we'll look at here is they say that m is equal to 3 and b is equal to negative 2. Okay. This is going to be a quick little one-step problem. We know that in our formula here, the m is the first blank, which is the slope, and the b, or the y-intercept, is the second blank. So what I'm going to do is just plug in negative 2 for the b, and I'm going to plug in 3 for the m, and I'm just going to rewrite that so I don't have a plus negative there. I'll rewrite this as y equals 3x minus 2, and that would be it for that one. Okay, next one. If you understand which letter the y-intercept and the slope are, it should be easy to fill these in too. I'm always going to start when I'm writing the equation of the line thinking that I have to fill in these two blanks. You know that the first blank is the m, and that represents the slope. So let's fill the slope in here. That would be negative 10. And then the y-intercept here is 4, so let's fill that in. And this one's actually already a simplified. There's no better way to write this one, so I'm just going to circle this one right away. Negative 10x plus 4. No plus negatives to get rid of or plus zeros or anything like that, so I'll leave that as it is. Okay. Next one says it passes through 0, 2 with a slope of 6. So once again, we'll always start with y equals blank x plus blank. We know that the first blank, again, is the slope. Just like negative 10 we filled in here, let's fill in the 6 right in here. So we'll fill this in for 6. Now the y-intercept, we first need to make sure that this point is actually a y-intercept. And in this case, we know from a previous lesson that the point 0, 2 is on the y-axis. So that must be the y-intercept. You know, if I were to sketch this line, it would look something like this. That means the y-intercept must be at 2. Okay? So any point that has a 0 in for the x and a number in for the y that's not 0, well, even if it is 0, but any point that has a 0 in for the x is going to be a y-intercept. Okay? So like the point 0, 5 is a y-intercept. Okay, so we plug in 2 for the y-intercept and we're good there. Now, one more to go. This one's a little bit different. It has an undefined slope that crosses through the x-axis at negative 3. This is the one type of problem where if you try to, write this as y equals blank x plus blank, you're going to have problems. Okay? The reason is because this is a special type of line. Remember lines that have undefined slopes? They go straight up and down like this. And the equation of these lines look a little bit different than this slope-intercept form stuff. Okay? They're written this way as x equals, we said that x lines are vertical lines because if you cut an x in half, it makes a v for vertical. X equals a number. Okay? And that number would be where the line crosses the x-axis. And at this point, since it crosses at negative 3, we would know that this would just be a vertical line crossing through negative 3, which gives us the equation x equals negative 3. Again, these problems are going to be a little tricky. Will take you some practice to get, but almost all the other problems are interconnected and all kind of make sense with that y equals blank x plus blank. So the key here is y equals blank x plus blank. Fill in the two blanks. Okay, if you can do that, you can write the equation of the line. We'll do some more complicated examples in a further or later on video.